Courteous greetings and a warm welcome to all my viewers and students. You are watching class remotely and this is your teacher Mehjabin. Today we are going to look into the arrival of the French in India with special reference to the French East India Company. Those of you who have not watched my previous video on the arrival of the Europeans in India, in which I have talked about the Dutch arrival, please make sure that you have checked it out so that your understanding of these tutorials get clearer. And now, without any further ado, let's jump into the lesson. The French came to India much later than the English. In the year 1680, the English arrived on the Indian soil. As far as the French were concerned, the French East India Company, which in the French language, this French East India Company was titled as La Compagnie francaise des Indies Orientales. And this company was formed in 1664 when Louis XIV was the King of France. The French formed this company to trade with India. 4 years after the formation of the French East India Company, the French arrived in India. They arrived in 1668. In that same year, after their arrival in India, the French established their first factory at Surat in Gujarat. This factory was established by Francois Caron, who was the Director General of the French East India Company from 1667 to 1673. The following year, that is in 1669, the French established another factory at Masulipatnam in Andhra Pradesh. In 1673, the French acquired the area of Pondicherry under the Sultan of Bijapur. They also established Chandernagore in 1692 with the permission of Nawab Shaista Khan, the Mughal governor of Bengal. Now, let's look into the main French establishments in India. So, the French had Pondicherry and Karikal on the Coromandel coast, Yangon on the coast of Orissa, Mahe on the Malabar coast, Chandernagore in Bengal, and Surat in Gujarat. Apart from these, there were some other French bases also, but these were the chief ones and these are the ones that you need to remember. Now, one very important question is, why did the French come to India so late? Historians have often wondered why the French came to India so late. In comparison, the other European powers who were also interested in trading with India arrived in India much earlier. One of the reasons why the French came late could have been due to the geographical location of the capital of France, that is Paris. The position of the French capital is an inland one. It has no borders with the sea. France also had a lot of customs barriers which initially seemed to have deterred the French from trading in the East. The mindset of the French merchants was also conservative. They were not particularly interested in investing a large amount of money in setting up commercial enterprises in the Far East. Now let's look into the French and British conflict in India. Initially, when the French arrived in India, they were not at all interested in setting up a territorial empire in India. They were just interested in business and trade, and they did it through peaceful means. Even the objectives of the British in the initial years after their arrival in India were purely business related. But in 1741, when Joseph Francois Dupleix arrived in India, the French scenario in India changed. Dupleix was an ambitious and power-hungry Governor-General of the French. He wanted to establish a French territorial empire in India. He focused on expanding the French territory in India, although the French government back home was not interested. British and French interests started clashing, and this conflict continued for a period of nearly 3 years until the arrival of the British officer Robert Clive in India. Clive arrived in India in 1744. Robert Clive was a brave and intelligent military commander, although in the initial years he began his career in the British East India Company as a writer. He was basically the man who helped the British to establish an empire in India. With the arrival of Robert Clive in India, the dreams of the French Governor-General Dupleix to create a French territorial empire in India got completely crushed. Eventually, Dupleix was dismissed from the French East India Company, and the French government called him back to France. Thank you so much for joining me here. Click on the description below to get the notes, and I'll see you soon in my next video. Goodbye.